Hey guys, this is Jay. Welcome to episode 32 of the Atlanteans. I'm here with Joe and Alec. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Joe?
Doing great. Excited to be recording at 8 a.m. in the morning when I'm fully functional and highly powered.
Joe is
So,
at full power.
uh, yeah, get excited. This is Maximum Joe.
So also joining us today, we have Matt and Sherwin from SFG. How you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thanks ever so much for having us. Is it really only 32 episodes? I feel like I've been listening to you guys forever.
We're coming up on our third-year anniversary is coming up.
Yeah, we have the extra episodes too. The ones
we have a couple
where they're not sequential. Like when we interviewed Matt Getz.
Yep.
Your guys.
All right. So we're here because SFG was nice enough to reach out and talk to us and offer us a chance to discuss the new casual play packet.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this one since they talked about it a year and a half ago. So we're really excited that it's coming out.
That's cool. And you've seen it and you've played it. And what are your first impressions?
It's so different. It's a complete so Joe and I touched on this a little bit later. So later on, Joe and I are gonna do a battle report, an after action discussion of our game and a playthrough. And we found that the game it's just completely different. The way you think about building your army is different. The way that you build your command cards is different. Everything is it doesn't feel like Steamroller, and that's a really, really hard thing for someone that's been playing Warmachine for 20 years and has been playing basically Steamroller as the way to play pickup and journeyman and narrative and all that kind of stuff for the last 10 or so. Not having it be a Steamroller game is really interesting.
Yeah, but did it still feel like Warmachine?
Yes,
absolutely.
Then
yeah,
incredibly.
It felt like Warmachine turned up.
Right.
Yeah, I'm really happy
level of intensity.
Especially the mission we played. It's insane. Joe,
I can't wait. I can't wait for this one. Yeah, this is gonna be cool.
Yeah, Joe basically mentioned that in our coverage that it felt like we started on turn 3, the top of turn 3.
Beautiful. That's and we can talk about this in some detail, but that is absolutely music to my ears and Sherwin's ears. Like this is what we wanted to achieve with some of the design pillars, is accelerate past that quite important but quite tactical kind of jockeying for position and try and get the game towards that mid-end game state. Is definitely the intention, because that's where I think Warmachine becomes the most fun, is when you're really in the muck and the bullets are flying all over the place, and there's no perfect decision anymore. There's only good decisions, and then your dice tell you, no, you're wrong, try something else.
Right.
I knew dice will come up at some stage.
So
dice always come up. All I need is boosted sixes to win. Come on, how hard is it? Really hard.
Before we get into it, there's one thing that I need to acknowledge, and that is you. Thank you very much for mentioning me at Lock and Load this past year about the alt Strix model, and it is everything I pitched to you. It's great. It's fantastic. It really is. Awesome.
That's cool, mate. Look, I might not be the prettiest face in the world, but I listen to everything that people say to me, and it all goes in there. Well, so
with that in mind, I have another pitch for you. That so Lord Longfellow from the Grimkin Army. Now that you guys are doing this release of the Grimkin STLs, Lord Longfellow is a spider in a trench coat. He's got a mask. He is the first Grimkin that was sent into the world. He was the first one that was slipped through the barrier, and he's been here the longest. And so he hides as a human, and the model, you can, if you look at it real closely and look up underneath you can tell that it's a spider. But it's basically just a guy that's standing straight with 2 pistols like this and not really doing anything. And he's, in my opinion, the coolest character in the army. And I've always wanted a mini crate or a third-party model, something where he's got one leg down on a piece of rubble, is flipping up in the air, the trench coat's up in the air, the spider legs are dangling, he's got his gun pistols, and he's going after somebody.
Oh yeah, that's
it's unfurled all the legs.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you see that he's a spider. And so there's a pitch. I don't know, but it's something I've wanted since I got the original model and painted it. So
Yeah, the
Fair
announcement
enough.
was awesome. We were all watching it live.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jay even heard it at first, right? Like we heard it.
Yeah,
and
we
I-
were like,
and
we
then,
no, I
actually
didn't.
do.
No,
yeah.
me and one of our players were on, and we listened to it, and we were like talking about something else when it came up, and so I didn't hear it until my second playthrough.
Ah, okay. Well, look, it's that's a great idea, and it's definitely one that's going to go into the locker for us to kind of
Cool.
Have a think about. Yeah. No, perfect. Yeah, like that's another great idea, Jay. So
Yeah.
Hey, when it comes
All right.
naturally, it comes naturally. What can you
Comes
say?
naturally.
Yeah. All right, so talk about this packet. Go ahead.
So the organized play packet was huge. I mean, we were shocked at the size of it.
Right.
The thing's enormous. 31
Not the first time I've
pages.
heard
Okay, that was a little too easy. I'll make it harder next time. Oh man. Oh, I didn't say that either. Yeah. So, I mean, tell us. I mean, so the scope of this thing, it covers casual play. It talks about Steamroller. It talks about the campaign system.
Not Steamroller, Journeyman.
Tell us, Journeyman.
Yeah.
Tell us about sort of combining all three of these systems together, releasing this all at once as one big packet. How did this all come about?
I think it's a stunning display of feature creep, which I'm particularly proud of. Although the project manager in me is curling up inside a little bit. So, look, we wanted to make sure that we showcased that Warmachine is more than just a really tight competitive game. It already has a brilliant reputation for being arguably one of the better competitive games out there on the market, and has been for quite some time. But as we kind of talked about, when we're chatting earlier, there's so much more to Warmachine that is just inherently fun, and the world is cool, and the models are cool, and the abilities are cool, and
Wow.
Sometimes when you play Steamroller, it does feel like there's that extra layer of competitive pressure that if you make a single mistake, you're going to get punished. If something, if this happens, then suddenly you're pushing uphill for the rest of the battle, and it creates a different sort of sensation. So when I stood up on stage at that first keynote at the Adepticon last year and talked about those three pillars, it was a firm commitment that those three pillars, casual play, competitive play, and the hobby side of things, are equally important. They are all equally important to each other and to us. And so when we started looking at what we wanted to put into the casual play document, the first starting point was, well, what does it look like if it looks like a Steamroller pack, but it's just more orientated towards more casual sort of style scenarios? Now, the hardest question you could ask me, because I don't actually have the answer for, is what actually defines the difference between a casual scenario and a Steamroller or a competitive scenario? And I can kind of muse on that a little bit, but because I think there's a couple of kind of hallmarks that you can look out for, but largely there's quite a degree of overlap, if I'm perfectly honest with you. A lot of those scenarios we put into the casual pack, those first 6 scenarios, arguably you could see them on a Steamroller table at some point in time, and I don't think the competitive world would blow up as a result of that. I think they're really good, fun scenarios. But I think the challenge for creating them is actually recognizing that smaller footprint of the army size and looking at 30 points and 50 points. So we pick 50 points as what we think is the absolute sweet spot of a small format game. I think 30 points is fun, and Sherwin and I are heading down to our gaming club tonight to play week 2 of our Journeyman. So it'll be more 30-point games. I got 3 games in last week. I think, Sherwin, you got 3 in, didn't you?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah. And so they're a lot of fun, and there's still a bit of challenge to it. You're still kind of thinking your way through. But when we finished kind of like looking at what those 6 scenarios were, I then had a moment where I was out walking the dogs, and I had an idea for how a campaign system could actually work. And originally I was trying to map that campaign system onto those 6 scenarios as an alternative framework for how to deploy those 6 scenarios into your gaming group or your gaming club. But the more into that campaign system that I got in terms of the design, the more I realized that the real power would be if they had bespoke scenarios that had more narrative and more asymmetry built into them, because that would be the payoff for your actions that you're choosing to take during your campaign turn. So we ended up with those two, and then Journeyman was going to come anyway because Journeyman's awesome and the best way to get into a new army, in my opinion. I think anyone who wants to get into Warmachine, 100% it is the very best thing that you can do is to start with a Journeyman League, play 30 points, play a couple of games 30 points, then do 50, play 2 or 3 games at 50, and then go up to 75, 2 or 3 games at 75, then go up to 100. You will be a far better player and have far more success with that 100-point list if you follow that process than if you jump straight in at 100 points and just try and play 10 games straight. I think you're just going to be a better player if you progress your way through and learn the army organically. So Journeyman had to be in there as well.
So I think we want to definitely, if we have an opportunity in the future, speak to you more about the German League. I've run hundreds of them in my life and played in them since Mark 1. They are the quintessential way, as you said, of getting you into the Warmachine game and understanding the difference in scale and size of the game and how one model interacts at 50 points doesn't interact the same at 100 points, and understanding that. But I think that we want to focus on the beginning casual play stuff and then the campaign, because your campaign system is amazing, and we're going to talk most of the show about it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you pushed for those extra scenarios because they're wild and they're cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I think I do like 50 points as a casual play point level. Like it's much faster, it's much fresher. 30 is really hard with hordes, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And 50 was hard last year because 6 scenario elements, 50 points. It's like every single individual model or unit has to find this one's point. So I think it seems like one of the hallmarks of the new scenarios is that of the casual play scenarios is that they're like Steamroller, but that they have fewer elements. It's a little bit easier to get to them with a smaller footprint. I'm curious, would you play 75 on them, or would you play them on Steamroller, or how do you,
Yeah, they'll scale up as required, to be honest. Like, you don't have to. Like, 50 is definitely, as you've probably worked out by now, Matt's favorite format around this sort of, or points level around this format. But yeah, they'll scale upwards. And in fact, obviously, if you're playing a Journeyman and using this pack, then you will play at 75 and 100 on these scenarios. So it all kind of still fits in there. I think one of the things it's interesting. One of the things we first experimented around with was deviating a fraction away from Steamroller and sort of making objectives where they didn't necessarily have to have the same requirements as what Steamroller were capturing them and so on. But it's something where we very quickly worked out if we bring them more centralized and understand that smaller armies are playing on these tables, then you don't, having things stretched out quite so far actually offers quite interesting tactical decisions. There's quite a few of them that you probably clocked already. In the descriptions, actually say in the designer notes, you can put this flag on, in the backfield if you want to, but that means depriving some of your army to actually protect it and keep it safe or whatever else. And there's tactical nuance in there.
Well, I also think Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, can I just make one minor thing? One of the sad things I have, I liked 50, but I can't bring my favorite caster in at 50, and that's just a minor thing. Like, well, no, I don't think.
But you could, right? You could decide to do that.
To do that. But I mean, would it be fun for your opponent? Yes. That's the problem.
I mean, look, you could shoot him off the table. He's a big boy.
You're talking to the person. I took E. Garsby to a 20-point Fun, Quick, and Dirty tournament. So
I mean, that's the point of that.
Oh, it's so mean.
Yes, it was.
So the point I wanted to make was, and I think that it's something that it was a choice you guys made with the casual play packet, and to keep the Steamroller objectives and things and elements in. It's a good way to learn as a narrative person to understand. So if you decide to take the step up to Steamroller, that you understand the same scoring elements and the same things that you use in the narrative play is also what you're using in the competitive play.
Yeah, and I think
that's exactly it.
The most challenging way of kind of addressing this, though, is and one needs to pick words carefully, because and you just had a slip of the tongue there, Jay, where you kind of said, "Oh, step up to competitive."
Right.
It's not a step up; it's a step sideways into a different swim lane.
Okay.
But we do want to make sure that and recognize that your meta at your store might be half a dozen people playing Warmachine, 5 of which are really into like the competitive side, 1 not so much, but gets dragged along and plays Steamroller because that's what everyone else is playing.
I'm that guy.
With this, right? But that casual pack has recognizable elements on it to you as a casual player, but also to the other chums that you have down at the store who are competitive players. What you don't want is someone who's competitive to feel like they're wasting their time. And I'm doing that in speech marks, because it's never a waste of time spending time with friends and rolling dice and playing toy soldiers. But I've run into this where people are like, I've fancied a quick game with someone. Oh, do you want to play a quick game? Yeah. All right, 50 points? Oh, no, 100 points. And it must be Steamroller. Do you want to play on the clock? Do you want to do this? Well, I'm not really vibing that at the moment. Do you know what I mean? I kind of just want to, I don't know, roll some dice and chat shit about stuff. But so the casual packs have that reference point with the competitive scenarios, so that the people who are more focused on the competitive side feel like they're still getting value out of playing these casual scenarios, because there's still patterns to recognize. There's how do you control objectives, which units do you have that are good for this and not good for that, and what packets do you have within your army construction. And one of the reasons why I quite like the smaller the point size is it actually represents that mid to late game stage where you don't necessarily have all of your toys that you start every 100-point Steamroller scenario with. You actually have a subset of a 100-point list, and you need to try and figure out a way of winning with what you've got on the table. So I definitely feel that when I play casually, I am still practicing. Should I find myself in a competitive event, I'm not going to feel like a fish out of water. I'm going to feel, this isn't that different. It's not that different. It really isn't that different.
That's such a great mentality, right? It's a place to like meet in the middle a little bit, and I love that idea of thinking about practicing the late game of Warmachine when you don't have all your tools, right? The game's a little bit smaller, the decisions are a little bit riskier. I think that's great.
It actually helps, and I've certainly noticed it with my games, and my win rate is by practicing, or the effect that I'd say practicing is that I'm playing these casual games because they're fun, but I am also getting the benefit out of knowing how to close a game off with a smaller set of models, and not sitting there going, I wish I had that key solo or that key piece. I've got what I've got. Can I win from here? And when you start looking at the game with that mentality, well, then that mid game and end game becomes a lot less kind of scary when you find yourself in it. And we have to be realistic that players on their Warmachine journey at the beginning are going to spend, it's just logical, they're going to spend most of their time in turns 1, 2, and 3, and less time in turns 4, 5, and 6. But the better you get at the game and the more you understand about the game, the more you will start seeing your games lasting into 3, 4, 5. And then when I've watched WTC or watched really like high end players playing full bore, that's when you're looking at turns sort of 5, 6 and beyond. Like the games could go on indefinitely if the clock wasn't on them. So it helps you just sort of transition through all 3 key stages of the game. And as someone who loves League of Legends as much as I do, and I love that transition between early game, mid game, and late game, and what the different shifting in priorities are and the different game state is. That's why I find League of Legends endlessly fascinating, and I think it's something that is inherent within Warmachine as well. So we're looking for this casual pack to help provide some kind of scaffolding to kind of help people into these parts of the game that are richly rewarding if you get into them.
That's really awesome.
I love that vision. I wonder if you'll even see people practicing 50 points on these scenarios with that in mind, right? Like,
you should.
Not that that's what they're intended for, but like I think that's a really interesting idea for training and getting better, right?
I'll give you a sneaky peek of a format that I'm messing about with in my head is it's 100 points. You turn up with a 100-point list, but your opponent gets to strip 25 points out, and then you play.
So,
right? Man,
I can say that I've done basically that, where you basically show up with a list, or you show up with 2 lists, and your opponent looks at it and says, I don't want to play against this, this, and this. And you either have to replace those pieces, or you just play without them.
Right. Yeah.
We used to do that in Mark 1. Yeah.
It's that same mentality. Because, how many times... look, maybe this is just me kind of like mapping my own personal experiences, but I'm sick and tired of the Deathjack getting crippling grasped and then effectively being out of the game for the rest of the bloody game. Why is crippling grasp an upkeep? It drives me insane. But I have to learn to play without Deathjack, which makes me sad, because no one should have to play without Deathjack. It sucks, but you have to, and you've got to find a way of winning, haven't you?
Yep.
Or change it to FA2.
No. No.
No, I think we can
No.
thumbs down that.
No.
So Sherwin, you talked about the designer notes, and that's like one of the things that I loved about this packet. There are like all these interesting hints and ideas. I mean, I think it gives the idea very much that there's not one way to play this, right? That casual play can be a sort of you can deviate in agreed upon ways with your opponent. The one I liked the most is the idea that one player would play assassination mode, so they can kill the opponent's warcaster with all the tools at their disposal. But the other player might play executioner mode, so they can only kill their opponent's warcaster with their warcaster. Can you tell us like a little bit about that and how that idea came up? And
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and steal Matt's excellent work as my own. That's definitely a Matt Hart idea more than it is mine. But yeah, we talked a lot about one of the things that happens quite a lot at our local club anyway. Is that we see kind of less experienced players playing more experienced players. We have one guy, for example, who's currently in training for the WTC, and he just steamrollers everybody because he's exceptionally good. And of course, is every single game he plays is conditioning like his lists and trying to get them to be perfect to what that experience is. And of course, to the mid-table sort of players who would normally go to like a steamroller and end up mid-table, or the newer players, he just smashes through them, and it's not terribly fun for him or the person he's playing sometimes, because any mistake is immediately exploited, right? This isn't necessarily a Warmachine thing. This happens with every game, but the point is that we talked about where do we get to in balancing levels? Where do we get to if we want to have with our play packet? How do we get there to a state where we say, well, here's a handicap someone could put on themselves, which feels like it's within the boundaries of the rules and isn't necessarily feeling immediately unfair or anything else along those lines. Now, we kind of talked about lots of different ideas, and that's one of the ones that fell out of it. And this is the part where I'll hand the baton to Matt in a second, because that felt like a very elegant way to immediately address and limiting the way one of the game end states that you could actually achieve. Matt, I'll pass over to you if you want to add anything to that.
No, I mean, look, you've covered it very eloquently, mate. It's a player agreed way of introducing some degree of handicap system, or whatever the 2026 way of describing a handicap system is. I don't know what you're allowed to say anymore, but you know what I mean.
Handcuff? I don't know. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, we know what you mean.
So Joe, in our upcoming campaign, you're in execution mode in every game.
No. So I have a pitch for that. Instead of execution mode, he can only win on scenario. So you mentioned with better players. So there are people that I know where they always try to win on scenario, and if you get them to the point where they're frustrated with winning on scenario, then they'll finally go and assassinate you. When they could have assassinated you turn 3, at turn 6 or turn 7 is when they'll actually finally assassinate you. And that's where, like, when I play against WTC players, that's all like, ha, I got you. See, you had to switch back to assassination. And when I played with my son the other day, because we have a table here at the house and he plays Chimera, I don't play assassination or execution against him. I have to win on scenario. And there's ways where he will have his caster, so I could easily assassinate. But he's like, well, Dad, you have to win on scenario. I was like, yep, that's fine. I'll do that because I have to.
Yeah, actually, what you've described there is very much how we play a lot of internal playtest games. So we'll be playing, and at any point where you can see an assassination, we'll pause, we'll go, I think I've got an assassination. Let's quickly math it out. Yeah, it looks like a 50%. It's a coin flip, or that looks like an 80%er, or that's it's a YOLO, and we work it out quickly. But then we say, okay, if we choose not to do this, how do we then play the game out? And then that keeps you going into that mid game and that end game a lot further and a lot longer. And I think Warmachine needs assassination to be an ever-present danger, because I think that will help shapes the game into, it's almost like the girdle that gives the game its form. But I don't think it's the alpha and the omega. And I think there's so finding ways of allowing players to kind of self-regulate. So if you're playing someone who doesn't have as much experience with you, or they do have as much experience but they're trying a new army, just challenge yourself and say, hey, I'm just going to run I'm only going to use my caster for assassinations. Other than that, I'm going to have to focus on scenario. And it's good practice for you. You get something out of it. It's good practice for your opponent. They get something out of the game. They feel like they're learning as well. And at the end of the day, one of the most common things you ever hear people talk about And I think it's the reason for that deep love for Warmachine that we all have, is we play the game because we know we get something out of it that's far beyond just beating someone at a game. We actually feel like we're learning and challenging our grey matter, and it stops us getting old, basically, because we're working our brains as we're doing it. So yeah.
I think I'll also add into that as well, as part of execution mode. It changes the way that you approach the game. It changes the way you think about the models you're using and how you might want to use them on the tabletop. I've seen a few people using a certain frogcaster that is very, very or bullcroak, I should say, that's very popular amongst some troll players at the moment, in a very, very different way, using execution mode rules than they have assassination, because you can afford to yeet him down the battlefield and see what you can do in terms of churning through the enemy and so on, if you feel safe to do so. And that's something you might never ever do in a tournament, or using Steamroller, and that's fine. It's we talked about how we want things to feel different, right? In terms of what a casual play experience is to what a tournament play experience is, and I think that works really, really well for that.
I can't even imagine Bugatti Bomb in execution mode. Like,
oh goodness,
so good, right? Like he can just play in the sprinkler all day long. He doesn't have to worry, and then the opponent's got to be real scared, right? Because he can close it out himself, no problem.
And I think so much of tournament play tends to be focused around what are the optimum choices, what's the best way to do this, or whatever else. It opens up that space to a lot of casters or locks you might not normally see, which is interesting.
Yeah. Great. Did you I think we want to talk about the campaign, but were there other ways that you thought of to kind of help add asymmetry between players and to kind of, bring that game back to this interesting competitive level, like executioner versus assassination mode? Were there other things you thought about?
Other than things that we've kind of touched upon, there's always a heap of ideas on the whiteboard. The challenge I always find, and this is core to the design philosophy that we follow, is good design is when you can't take anything more out rather than adding more stuff in. And you guys are smart cookies. You're going to have looked through those January update notes and recognize that there's a streamlining that's going on. We're pulling a comb through the hair because the hair's got a little bit and a little bit messy, and we're just trying to straighten things out a little bit. So there's any number of ways we can create asymmetry in the game that I think are really fun. So it was more a case of what should we do. Just because we could doesn't mean we should. It always reminds me.
Giving the players a lot of options, a lot of ability to play the game in the way that they see fit. Right?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
And also, this isn't the only time we're going to see a casual play pack. We are going to have others later on as well. So we don't need to go kind of full bore straight away, right?
Yeah. Is there a chance we're going to see like a pure narrative pack like we had with the Oblivion campaign?
Yes, 100%. And the campaign framework that we've talked about briefly, and hopefully we'll deep dive in a little bit
shortly.
Good, because that forms the bedrock of the structure upon which we can very easily now map a very narrative driven campaign that has a lot of story woven into it.
And let me say, I love that you guys instead of doing the very narrative campaign, which almost all the other Privateer Press or Warmachine campaigns over the years have done, if they've gone directly into that story. And by creating that format, creating that sort of framework, you have both set yourself up to be able to make your own narrative stories and given a template for people to use to build their own stories. And I think that's really important.
Yeah,
Dude,
that's music to our
on the money. That is so on the money. It reminds me of when, and I don't know if you guys know, but before I started Steamforged, I used to make video games for about 15, 20 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've kind of done a whole bunch of video game stuff and then got into board games. But it reminded me of, during the course of that 16, 17 year career, was you needed a tools team. The tools team created the tools that the internal designers and developers then used to create the game.
Right.
But that was when I started. But by the time I kind of finished making video games, what was actually interesting was a lot of the tools that we were making for ourselves actually ended up being public facing. And the best one is camera mode. We used to use camera mode to make sure we could fly around levels and see what was going on and check it all out. Turns out that actual people playing the game really like camera mode because they could see what was going on. Cool pictures. So what was a tool became a feature, and And that campaign system effectively is us building our tool set. We now have a core tool. We will see how people react to it, what pinch points they might have. We've played tons of games in it, but we're barely scratching the surface of now it's out in the hands of 10,000 people playing a game a week. Well, that's a lot of feedback we're going to get. We can then refine our tool, and then, as you say, Jay, really easy for us to layer stuff on top.
Let's just jump right into it then from that point, because I got to tell you, this campaign system is, I think it's genius. When we first looked at it, we were like, "What is this? This doesn't make sense. This is
it didn't
elements
match
of this over here and elements of that over there."
Way.
But so talk to us about how it works and why it works.
Imagine being the guy that has the idea, but then has to try and explain it to people.
Okay. Well, here, let me. I've thought about it a bunch. So, the interesting thing about your system and the challenge of running campaigns, and I've run a lot of them in my life as a community organizer and a press ganger and stuff like that. Almost always there's someone that has to run the campaign. There's someone that has to be the guy that information comes back to and then puts information out. It has to be the GM, the narrator, and while they can play and sort of be involved, they're not really playing the campaign. They're running the campaign and sort of playing in the background, using air quotes over my head.
Right. And
if you don't do that, then it becomes much more like a league where you're just sort of like interacting with the information, but you're not really there's no story sort of happening there. And the cool thing about your system is it takes the best parts of like a map-based campaign where you have locations and strategic points you're trying to get and resources and access, but mixes it with that league where you don't need to have a GM that is sort of running things, because the campaign system and the grid system, which is what I'm interested in you talking about, where that idea came from, functions like the map.
Well, let's cut straight to it. The core, or the very first time I had that idea, was playing Blades in the Dark, which is an RPG by Mr. Harper. Incredibly well respected RPG, spawned countless spin-offs using the Powered by the Apocalypse engine. But within that, they had this concept of you were building your domain as a kind of gang of cutthroats, and it had this kind of orthogonal grid, and it just stuck in my mind because we were role playing. We were imagining all these cool things happening, but actually mechanically what we were doing is saying we want to move into this grid and take control of this grid because it gives us +1 reputation. So that's what we want. But the story that came out was incredible because it was mapping onto the events that were actually happening in our game. Now, our game would be different from your game, but you would have similar things happening in your game onto which you would map your story. So we could both be attacking the same kind of grid on our template, but because you've got a different context and I've got a different context, we're having an entirely different but powerful experience. And that was really the genesis of that idea, was that actually can really work quite powerfully, that if we can have a modular system that is easy to understand, people kind of get it tactically. Oh, right, I need to create an engine so I can actually generate some intel or some resources, some supplies, blah blah blah. But ultimately, the goal is to take territory. But to take territory, you need intel and supplies and a supply chain. So there's always that kind of push me, pull me sort of feel. And it's a bit like you play a game like Small World, where when do you actually collapse your civilization? How far do you extend out? Or you play Risk. When do you actually consolidate your turn? And the skill becomes in extending far enough and then consolidating back, extending out far. But there's that temptation to go one step too far, or you haven't quite gone far enough, or so.
You can push straight for victory, right? But it's not necessarily the right thing to do.
Right.
If everybody else is consolidating, you're gonna have issues, right?
It's deliberately designed to be an uphill battle if you try to do that as well, because you are going straight for the throat, and you are and cool, that's a completely viable tactic. But to get there, you're going to have to play with players who've got much more advantage in the game than you do with the resources, and that's key.
Absolutely.
And the real advantages. I liked so that there's a grid system which provides like sort of a feel of capturing territory, claiming ground, gathering resources. But it's a little bit more abstract than you might see in a map-based campaign. And I think because the locations you aren't next to your opponent's locations necessarily, right? And I think that was really important. When I played map-based campaigns before, one thing that's been an issue is, whoever you're next to, you just end up fighting over and over again.
Yeah,
and that can be pretty unpleasant for both of you if it goes badly. Like if you're on a winning tear or a losing tear, like that can be negative. And this allows you to, one, interact with everyone in the campaign because there's not a formal like map. And two, it allows for much more interesting storytelling because you're not like bound by the geographies of like whatever map you decided to set down at the beginning.
Exactly right. Yeah, and it's also interesting that I think if you can get your head around it, that just because the guard tower is adjacent to a square on your grid, or the watchtower, sorry, is adjacent to a square on your grid, it doesn't necessarily mean geographically that it's right next to that bit. This could be a place that's 20 miles, deep into territory that you want to establish this watchtower on. So the distances are non-linear between like the connecting points between all the different grid elements. So you can absolutely map this onto whatever your imagined world is in your mind, or whatever map you guys are looking at while you're playing this. And it all depends on what factions you're playing and all sorts. So.
And I think, and we've danced around this a couple of times, but for me, this is what's important about this is again, it's evocative. It's a starting point for storytelling. This isn't a narrative campaign at this stage, but it is something where I'm very much looking forward to chatting to people when they actually get this in their hands and actually start playing their campaigns, because we absolutely want to encourage you to talk, to make your own stories around what's happening here. Talk about, what that watchtower you're going for is, or that kind of resort, what these different resource grids, these resource areas look like on your grids, these locations. What does that look like? How does that work? And actually tell stories about it, because that's players telling stories and committing to the campaign that way. That's where they generate experiences. That's where it becomes their own personal thing, rather than something that we literally detail to you and say this is what's happening. And I think that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
one of the sneaky.
So let me jump in. So in that moment that you're talking about, the stories, that's the thing that I still bring up about games that I played 10, 15 years ago, where a cool moment happened or a cool thing happened in a game. Most likely in a narrative or campaign game, where I did this because this happened and this dice roll caused this to happen, and that's the moment that I still bring up and talk about when I'm talking to new players, when I'm talking about how much fun I've had with the game. Those are the moments that you're going to remember.
Agreed. I think one of the ways that we subtly reinforce that as well through the grid is the grid that you're controlling, your territory grid, tells you the resources that are available to you if you go out and get them. But in order to get the different types of resources, you need to undertake a different kind of mission.
Right.
And the different types of mission, all of these are elements that are building blocks of the narrative that's being constructed in your mind as to what you're doing. I'm sending an expeditionary force deep into the forest to go and take control of this bluff that gives me a view of the entire valley. That's what I see in my head. It's not, I'm just going to go and take like the watchtower grid. I that's what I'm sort of seeing. Now, if I've got that picture in my head, and let's say, Jay, you and I our schedules line up, we're going to play each other this week. I know what I'm doing. You're trying to, I don't know, reinforce your supply chain. So so maybe you're kind of trying to defend the train depot or kind of something like that. Well, we can smudge those together. And now my story interacts with your story in a way that makes sense. The scenario that you're playing reinforces your motivation for your entry into that scenario is reinforced by the scenario itself, all the way down to whether you're the attacker or the defender is mandated by the choices you make in your campaign term. It all becomes really powerful, like powerfully personal to the story that you're telling at the table, and you share that with your opponent. And I think that's how you end up with these stories that you build together, which leads to what you're saying, Jay, where you have these shared memories of cool moments that stick with you way more than that time you rolled trip sixes and one-shotted someone. Like, who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? But you really care when when, you know, I still remember Borka making 5 tough rolls in a row, like just stumbling around all over the place. You know, I remember that. That was funny, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, and I think that this grid system, it really rewards you playing the game that you want. So, like, for example, there's resource elements that we've talked about and we sort of mentioned, and they can give you different advantages or let you bring a unit back, or there's all kinds of stuff. And so some people are gonna, like me, who is really focused on attrition and how I can't bring stuff back, wants those abilities to bring those units back. And
Right.
I might be focused on that. Well, you're trying to win the campaign. You want to go do those assault missions. You got to win 3 assault missions to win. I'm going to go do that. And so it gives us the opportunity to both have a goal and have a desire of what we're trying to accomplish, while still playing a fun game and having a mission that's related to that.
And that's something that you when you start running this, you're going to see this happen a lot. That I guess it depends on the nature of your gaming group, but typically when we play a competitive style board game, so like Star Trek Ascendancy or Game of Thrones or something like that, we'll be playing fairly ruthlessly because we've known each other for quite some time. So there's no holds barred, but you're playing within the social contract up until the point. And there's this meta game that Sherwin and I like to play where we try and get the rest of the table to believe that one of the other people are about to win to get everyone else to gang up on them. But really, it's me and Sherwin having a secret battle to actually win the game.
Yeah, everyone else is proxies. It's just,
everyone else is proxies in their cat's paws in our games. But we will see this in the campaign system. That's the minute someone gets onto 2 territories, everyone else is going, yeah, you know, Joe's on 2 territories.
Oh man, yep.
Yeah. So there's a bit of Kingmaker that kind of starts to creep in as well, which I think is always fun. Whenever a game is played at human level and not a table level, I think it becomes way more interesting.
I want to pick out one of the things that you said earlier about how the missions are determined. So every round, each player chooses sort of their objective. Are they going to focus on getting more supply, getting more morale, getting more intel, or doing a mission to like capture a key territory, which is the way that eventually you win. So the way the grid works is that you and your opponent each choose one of those objectives, and then depending on which 2 you've chosen, you'll end up on a different scenario. And then, like you said, the scenarios, they tell the story of the game, and they're designed to kind of pick out those battles and show sort of what does it look like if one person is doing a resupply while another one sort of is scouting ahead and trying to like identify new territory. I think it's a really cool aspect of this. Did you have any missions that were your favorites? And like, which ones do you think told the stories the best?
Yeah. Go, man, you go first. I know exactly where you're going.
I like Street by Street. I really do. Yeah.
Like,
I really
do you know, like when you, I mean, I'm 1,000 years old. I still remember when buying CDs and even before that, like cassette tapes and stuff. And you had that album, and there's always that one favorite track, right? And Street by Street is that favorite track, I think, for everyone. Yeah. As soon as I say that, all of you can think of your favorite albums. That's the hit on it. Everyone loves Street by Street. I think all of them are super fun. I mean, I feel like I need to pick another one now, just while.
Let's
Matt, tell us why you like Street by Street. Well, I couldn't. Yeah, okay. Let's just go straight to Street by Street.
Street by Street is the game that we're gonna be showing off after we finish our conversation. That's the one that we all looked at, and Joe and I and Alec, and we're like, hey, that's the one that we should be playing. So.
And then we asked you guys, and you said play that one, and we're like, okay, done. Okay. Like, easy peasy.
But I mean, if you like, when you look at it with Street by Street, with the 2 different deployment zones for the red player and advanced deploy have to go in one and the rest of his army in another. If you, let's say, for example, like if I'm bringing exemplar errants and they are, or knights errant, exemplar errants, and they're advanced deploys, I might need them in zone 1, but according to the rules, they're going in zone 2. So now my army is split, especially if I'm playing my Trios 2 list. And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. I have 30 points that are going up here. And I'm like, oh, well, this. Yeah. And I was like, that's awesome, because you don't necessarily know, because you have to talk to your opponent. And he's like, oh, I'm going to play this. And then you're like, oh, no, we're on street to street. I have the wrong list for this. And that's going to be fun, though. That's going to add that narrative side of it.
That's before you get to battlefield conditions and strategic gambits and all that stuff, which is going to change around and cross deploy everything again.
Right.
I think all of those elements kind of, I swear I mentioned it at Lock and Load, which is, I have a particular love for a version of chess called Fischer chess, which was attributed to Bobby Fischer. And one of the things that stuck in my mind when I discovered this and I was doing a bit of research about it was professional players will like to play Fischer chess casually because it's more fun and it's more challenging because it actually feels like you're playing chess, whereas professional level chess is largely a memorization exercise, and I feel like Warmachine and any other tabletop game can end up being a bit like that. It's, you know, I don't want to throw too much shade around, but if you're playing a game where the terrain is fixed and your list is fixed and you know what you're going to be doing, I can just play the game at home and it doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? I'll play the first 2 turns at home, and
yeah, you can be so practiced, right, that you barely even play the game, right? You know the outcomes. You roll a few dice, and maybe that determines whether you're on this path or this path. But yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly
I know
right.
exactly what you're talking about.
The minute you've got, you know, hey, here's a really important package within your army. Guess what? Now one bit's over here and one bit's over here. Well, you've got to learn a new package, or you've got to try and find a way of getting them together. And I just think it just feels fresh. Every time you play in the game, it feels fresh and interesting, but it's still the same toy soldiers you're playing with. So I think that's the secret to it.
Yeah. So Street by Street is when one player is doing an assault, so they're trying to get a key territory, and the other person is doing a rally. So they're trying to like kind of consolidate their forces. And the person doing the rally starts in the center of the table, and they basically get to deploy all the terrain. So it's like they are on favored ground, it's their location, like, you know, they control the setup, and then the assault player basically surrounds them and gets to go first.
Yeah,
and
not
pretty much charge them from the get-go, right? Like it's so intense. I think Jay and I had no idea how it would go. Like, and as a defender, you have to think about how you're going to survive that first turn, right?
The game starts at 1,000 miles an hour and carries on at that speed. It's mosh pit at 1,000 miles an hour, basically, that scenario.
So when we pitched the idea of doing this, playing this mission and talking about it, Joe and I were like, well, you know, there isn't really an end. There isn't a turn limit. There's not we're playing in execution mode, so there's not a super objectives. Like the game could take like 7 or take 4 hours to play, and we didn't capture that. You're in it turn 1. They're on top of you turn 1. And so where did that come from? Where did the idea of that? Where'd you create that idea?
I was reading a book, and I'll have to send it to you separately because I can't remember the exact reference for it. But it was a list of war game scenarios from the 60s and 70s, I think. Okay. And what stood out for me was the fact that they had these win conditions that were more narratively driven rather than mechanically driven. Okay. But the challenge was, in my head, how do you take a narratively driven win condition and mechanicize it, but in a way that it doesn't lose its narrative strength? So the win condition is, you know, if the blue player has no models inside the central zone, they lose.
Right.
And therefore the red player wins. That's the win condition. Mechanically, it's clean. We all can understand it very quickly, but that is pure story. That is, you are fighting and clinging onto these streets. You cannot just run away and stay safe and keep out of charge range of avalanche. You've got to take that hit and hope that you survive and counterpunch and
fighting to the very last man, right?
Fight for the last man. So it's more a case of, and this is again, I think part of our approach to design is what does it currently do, and then how can we do it differently? And is that interesting? And if it's interesting, then it's something we then look to develop. So it's always, what can we do differently? And then is it interesting? They're the two questions that are so important to us when we're coming up with stuff.
And I think one of the reasons why Street by Street is the one that everyone immediately goes to, I've chatted to everybody who's seen this package straight away goes to that one. It's because it's so evocative of the last man standing, of trying to desperately protect this area. Like, obviously they're all good for whatever, whichever one you're looking at. But as you flick through, the first thing that attracts you to that is, okay, that deployment's insane. And then the second part after that is kind of immediately, as soon as you look at the name, you read the description of it, and immediately you're like, wow, okay, I get this straight away. Like, I want to play this because I want to see this desperate thing.
That's because there's almost a never-ending list of examples through conflict in history. Like, I am conscious I'm talking to Americans, so I don't want to try and be super clever, but it always sticks in my mind from Band of Brothers where you had that
Battle of the Bulge.
but yeah, the airborne in France holding onto that village, and they were just getting absolutely attacked on all sides, and it was like,
Absolutely.
I can't imagine ever being in a situation like that myself. That must be unbelievably terrifying. But it happens throughout history. So this is a meme. This is a metaphor or a trope. This is a trope that's happened countless times. Really easy for us to map onto as people who are into war games. We're almost certainly at least adjacently aware of military history, and it tickles our fancy. And so when you've got something like that that's really tropey, that works in the game system you're playing, it just becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
My mind went immediately to the Alamo, like another more American kind of reference. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sherwin.
I'll flip it onto you guys a little bit, which is because you guys originally said, well, we think we'll play at 50, and I know I kind of I'll try 75, see where you get to. What do you think about that decision or not?
I don't think it would have worked as well at 50. I mean, it would have worked at 50, but there wouldn't have been as many elements, and Joe wouldn't have been able to surround me quite as well. I almost think it would have worked better at 100 points, even possibly.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the intensity of that scenario in particular, right?
There's so much attrition that happens so fast. Like Jay needed a bigger force so he could take a hit and have enough to hit back with.
Right.
Like at 50, it might have been a knockout blow. At 75, it wasn't. And there's some really nice recursion mechanics that are built into this, which, like, narratively, they worked so well. We had that Kador Church from the Mini Factory thing, and narratively, we had a bunch of pikemen stand back up and get out of the church and run into the fighting. Like that,
amazing.
It told a perfect story and like mechanically really satisfying. And it 75 felt like a good place for those kinds of recursion elements as well.
But what's interesting though is that scenario plays differently at 30, 50, 75, and 100. They are all quite different experiences. So again, like if we can provide people with a gameplay experience that's different every single time you play it, and yet recognizable and familiar, well, I think that's what we're striving for. So that's success for us is keeping the game fresh and interesting for people. We want people to go to their club or go down to their basement and be playing with their buds and having a fresh, fun time every single time they play the game. We don't want them to be playing the same game over and over, because that's how you get bored and you move on and you find other things to do. And well, we don't want that to happen. We like making toy soldiers, and we certainly like selling toy soldiers. So our end of the bargain is we've got to make it as fun as possible for everyone concerned.
And then I think and a big part of that is exactly as Matt just pointed out. So you guys may play that game. You could play that game again because you have different battlefield conditions, because you have different tactical stratagems, because different point sizes. There's so many ways that game could feel very, very different. And each time,
I meant to,
and I love that.
I meant to ask you, have you guys thought about? I was kind of hoping with the, with the not the league, the campaign. I remember in previous campaigns, like sometimes your final mission would be like a co-op, and I thought Street by Street would be one of those ones where if you could have four people, 2 people on either side, how it would change it, because they could all deploy within, and that would be a tight fight, because you put 75 points from each player, so 150 total in that blue square, 150 in the reds.
Oh yeah.
That's like, talk about getting into it and just having that fight. Those dice are just rolling.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, big fan of 2v2 as well as a format. I love 2v2.
Doubles. Everyone always loves doubles. That's cool. I mean, and this is the great thing about us doing more of these packs. That's the sort of thing we can look to evolve to and grow to as we go on. As we said, it's a great starting place and building blocks to go from there.
So, one of the things that Joe and I encountered as we were playing through our mission through Street by Street was that for those other elements, for the resources, for the special abilities, the ability to bring guys back or ambush them in, or we thought that it'd be really great if we could have access to like a card system or asset tokens or something like that. Is that something you guys have thought about adding in the future?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of value in us putting together effectively an OP kit that makes running a campaign easier. So that's something that we're specking out, and in the balls are in play on that to kind of get that to happen. I'm heading over to where am I going? Louisville in a couple of weeks to go to Gamma. I get to meet distributors and retailers, and I know a lot of the commentary that I'll get is more OP kits. So a casual style OP kit is absolutely in progress right now, and I want to roll it out as fast as possible.
That's good information.
Pardon my ignorance. OP?
Organized play.
Organized play. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So it basically encompasses anything that might be an event organized at a store or a gaming club, or in with your buddies. It's usually a cardboard box with a load of posters and printouts and tokens and doodads and cool all the tools that you need to kind of like track a campaign or track a Swiss event or whatever the format is within that OP kit.
So, with the just casual play packet, what I think we've sort of covered your goals. We've covered the feel of the base casual play stuff. We've talked a little bit about Journeyman. We've talked a bunch about the campaign. Is there anything else that you want to get across to players with this packet that you're releasing? Is this something you're going to start doing? We can start expecting annually. What else do you want to share with us about it? Anything?
Oh, there's lots of things, isn't there? So I think it's worthwhile, and it depends on the timing of when you're going to share this with your audience. But if people haven't seen the kit, it's probably worth us having a conversation about the different resources that you want to gather as part of your engine building when you're establishing your territory, and the reasons why you would want those different resources. So a good one is recon. The more recon or intelligence you have, the better your recon rolls. Recon rolls are effectively a new structure that you determine before you start the game, which is how well is your scouting, and you can access different unique events that kind of happen. So it may well be that you can advance deploy extra distance onto the tabletop, or you can force an opponent to lose advanced deploy on one of their models, or there's just any number of ways you can interact with the game state at the beginning of the game or the first turn or two that just changes the flow of the game. Now, what we've got in the and then you've got things like your resources, like you can get rerolls and you resupply, so you can bring back units, etc. So there's any number of different ways that you can kind of like break the rules through these resources that you kind of gather. You guys will have seen that those lookup tables that we've provided, or those benefits, are deliberately quite faction agnostic. But there is absolutely a cast iron route where we do faction specific tables, and that means we can lean further into the strengths and weaknesses of the faction. So someone like, let's say, Circle might be really good at recon and get really cool results, but not so good at the resource management or getting like the recursion or anything like that. So we can really play about with that and make it feel very personal to the faction you're playing.
So a faction specific grid. Is that
what
I'm hearing?
Also,
That's really interesting.
We had so we established the 3x3 and then the territorial kind of borderline. But what does it look like if you take those 9 squares and stretch them like quite flat? Because you have to move orthogonally through your territory. So if you want to get to the watchtower, but it's like 4 or 5 away, is it even worth you going? Whereas another faction might have it much more on their doorstep and more accessible. So yeah, asymmetric grids, certainly asymmetric recon tables and like resource allocation tables. So for me, the next step is absolutely injecting more direct faction flavor into it. And through the faction flavor, we can then, the next step will be then layering in world narrative and world events and really cementing it in with the current storylines that we're telling and old storylines. There's no reason we can't do a historical campaign and go back 50 years or 100 years and go, hey, what does this now look like if we do this bit? So yeah, that's the next route for expansion. But my intention is every January we do the January update and a new Steamroller pack, and then we then follow up with an updated casual pack, so they both feel fresh every year. And then beyond that, it's specific narrative campaigns, it's specific faction specific stuff, so we can get really kind of like focused in on now we've got this kind of core system, we can then focus in on where we want to inject the most amount of flavor, basically.
Do you see that kind of driving the narrative arc for the year as well? Or like, I mean, how is the narrative going to evolve going forward?
That is
what an open-ended question.
What an incredibly loaded question there. Yeah, there's a whole lot to unpack with that one.
I mean, I'm not even sure. Like, I'm asking like what will happen, but I'm interested in like, you know, how do you think about these things? Like, are we going to see a timeline? Like, I think Jay has said that we're in some of your previous conversations, we're not going in that direction. So like, yeah, I'm not asking for spoilers, but more like, what do you? How is the information going to be communicated? Is maybe my interest.
I think for me, the best execution of this from my perspective will be if everything feels integrated and embedded with each other, and because it will feel far more coherent and far more designed. So when we think about these things at that high level, there is it's almost it's deployment agnostic. What is the big picture? What are we trying to do? So, you know, one of the powers of Warmachine has always been historically a really strong narrative that takes those people who really want to engage with the story in the world, fall in love with it, and it pulls them all the way through. And we saw this with Guild Ball. We obviously are big fans of Warmachine throughout the years, so we know what it feels like. So for us, that is quite an important part of the landscape of Warmachine, and if a campaign system can support that, and then what we do with the January updates, and then how we, you know, what the new factions are we're working on, or whatever new models or whatever we might want to add to existing factions, except that all kind of has that in its mind's eye. So everything inherits a sense of that in the work that we're doing, so the overall output feels a lot more coherent, a lot more kind of buttoned up. So that's a little bit of a politician's answer to your question, insofar as
it's a little bit of an impossible question to answer, right?
Yeah, I've not really answered the question. The simple answer to is we've got a story arc that you know, PP started, and Sherwin and I have been talking through, and you know, and chatting with Doug and Matt Getz and people like that. The story arc is in play, and we are working through that story arc. We're adding a whole bunch more of these more interstitial style kind of like flavor scenes that help fill in a bit more background and actually make the story feel a little bit more, well, coherent, but also a little bit more kind of like have more depth to it and more meaning to it. So by doing that, we've actually taken that story arc and just given ourselves a little bit more breathing room on time to deploy that story arc. So certainly for the next little bit, that's the primary focus. But then Sherwin and I actually next week we're booked in to start planning what happens after this story arc's finished. Where do we want to go from there? What's the next bit? Because if we know that now, every decision we make for the next 12 months is going to be paving the way
into all of these, the organized play, the casual play, all of these aspects.
You got it. Yeah.
There's a degree where you ask that, and I'm thinking, do I say that, you know, Matt and I are literally having this conversation, or large parts of this conversation, like in the short term? But yeah, exactly what Matt just said. Yeah, I think this. It's another part of the campaign pack is the campaign aspect in particular is such a useful tool, much like the interstitials we talked about, to help open up the narrative to more players, to basically get people thinking about the world, interacting with the world, telling their own stories within the world, and building up what that can be. And I think that's key. I like one of the things I have the most fun doing is sitting in the lore channels and chatting with people about stuff. This morning I was talking to people about Azdarak, for example, and the piece of Blysergast that's within the Warjack and so on. Like that sort of stuff's just cool. It's interesting. It's because people engage with what this is, and it's amazing. At some point I'm expecting someone to talk to me a whole bunch about Resnick and other things like that. I mean, I'll say the word that no one said anything.
Funny story. Hold on a second. I didn't get to show you this one at Nova because it was with the Broken Movers. But if you wanted a narrative style or something for
yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
that's very, very cool.
4 horses.
Yeah, I'm liking that a lot.
That's badass. So,
on 120?
Yeah, it's on the 120. I eventually I'll show you guys the boom that I'm making using a Roulette crawler.
This is a podcast, man. This is a podcast. It's not a visual show.
No, I know. No,
this is perfect podcasting.
But
so
being,
what about?
So
what about campaign and linking into? Because we one of the ways I think we've seen we're trying to bring people in. What about trying to campaign links into the IKRPG? Like, are we still going to try to pull people from, the idea of like, oh, this is a narrative, but we also have things like in previous versions of Warmachine or things like that, you were able to get people from like D&D into the role playing and then role playing into a narrative style and then narrative style into traditional play.
They have Requiem. I mean, Requiem is a good system, and you and I have played a bunch of Requiem and used that to pull narrative. And I use role playing ideas and stuff in back and forth between campaigns and before. I mean, that elements are there, but I think that I think what Alex's question is there going to be more tangible ties to that in the future? Is there going to be pieces of role-playing lore or campaigns or something that hooks into the story or is hooked into stories that have happened recently in the fluff?
Yeah, look. Sorry, go Matt.
I mean, I know you probably can't touch on all of that, but
yeah, there's a whole bunch to unpack in that. But I think one of the key things I'm very keen for us to do is to start making IKRPG and Warmachine, the game we all love and play, like feel more cohesive and actually join together. There's somewhat of a disconnect between some of the stuff that's happening with that now, and forging forward of where that looks like is obviously a thing where I don't know about you guys, right, but way back 1,000 years ago in Mark II times, I was buying. At the time, I wasn't playing any IKRPG content, but I was buying the books. I wanted to know about the world, and I wanted to immerse myself in that and everything else. And that narrows, exactly as you say. It narrows. It makes the barrier thinner to jump from one system to the other, and that's exactly what happened. Kind of went to a point. Oh, I've already got all these books. Let's play this. And that's exactly it, and vice versa. I can easily imagining. So yeah, absolutely. Like that's obviously always. Go forward, absolutely a plan.
Okay, awesome. So, I think we've accomplished what we were here to accomplish.
Covered a tremendous amount of ground. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, you haven't told us how did your game go, and what stood out for you? What did you enjoy? Who won? And how did the game play out?
Oh man, do you want me to say, Jay?
Go.
So right off the bat, after deployment, we looked at the table, and we both realized we had no idea what we were in for, because it was just like Jay set up, and he's I'm playing all my frogs, so I've got a bunch of advanced deploys, so I'm in every corner of the table. Jay's like set up the terrain as best he can to like prevent me from accessing his army, but it's all there. It's just right in front of me. I can charge as much as I want on the first turn. I can really get into it.
And he's playing Bagadon, which makes it even easier to do. So if he had wanted to assassinate me on turn 1 before I got to go, he probably could have.
Yeah, because I can get ghostly and my guys go extra fast, and I could have just been absolutely in the middle of his army. I liked it to play it a little more cagey, and I tried to force his Warcaster to the center by attacking him from the rear a bunch. And he came to the center, and then I started engaging him from the front because I couldn't quite get to him that turn. And but I took really heavy losses because I was just being really aggressive and really just throwing my stuff into his forces. And his Khadoran stuff was like really tanky, and it was good at like holding the lines. The Winter Corps were good at that. And in the end, he started to escape. I'd been forcing him to a pocket, and Severin starts to escape off the side. And so I go for my. So I say the moment is now. I go for my assassination, but I slightly forget its execution mode. And I don't kill him anyway. I leave him on. I will say that it didn't matter because at the end of it, I leave him on 3 boxes and he's on fire and he's about to get fueled for the flames and the fire goes out.
Oh no!
Yeah, but so I wouldn't have gotten him anyway. But yeah, it was a very epic ending.
That sounds cool.
What do you want to add to that, Jay?
Sounds awesome.
I mean, there were lots of great elements, lots of narrative, lots of cool things that happened, like Joe jumping his frog. What's the name of the solo, Joe? I can't remember.
Oh man, my Fugue Walker.
His Fugue Walker jumps into the middle of a combat.
Strategic strike.
Right.
And then I rolled him surgical strike. So my Fugue Walker had Fortune Hunter. And
so
the thing like it moves 13 inches, jumps in the middle, and just starts berserking.
Yeah, and so he jumps into the middle and just flubs it. Like completely.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Like three dice to hit on Alexia, 1-1-2, needing a 5. I mean, like just flubs it, and then he's like, "Okay, well, I got another attack.
Make the wrong frog, right?
I'll attack this guy. I fail to do it. I'm gonna use a resource to re-roll it. I kill this guy. I go into Alexia again. I flub it, and it's just like you're just like, that doesn't happen. That shouldn't happen." But then,
and in a competitive game, that would be annoying.
Right.
But in a narrative game, it's just kind of epic, right?
Epic.
Like frogged out Fugue Walker, like even more yoked than normal goes into it and can't get the job done.
It gets funnier than that because Alexia is then like, well, I'm gonna take care of him, and I'm gonna do it, and so I attack him back on my next turn. I miss. I'm forced to take a point of damage to reroll on her. I hit him. I kill him. I murder him. And he last stands and murders her back.
Nice.
So they both end up dead right next to each other.
Right. It just you couldn't tell it better. And so these kind of interactions like this that we're talking about and this excitement we have for it, this packet I think is going to provide that to a community that hasn't had an access to something like that in a while.
That is lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
That's really, really great.
Yeah, I know that when I first got into Warmachine, it was right before Escalation in Mark 1. And the Escalation had a campaign, and me and my 3 friends that got into the game, we played through that whole campaign several times, and a lot of my stories and a lot of the stuff that I love about the game happened during that sort of Escalation campaign or in the narrative in the Escalation. And that's the stuff I bring up when I talk to new players. And it's the stuff the moments that are like, well, I was, my 3 friends were fighting and they were all like getting damaged up and their armies were done. And I had sort of sat out over here and Butcher decides to walk across this bridge and Kane in the last dispensation slams him off the bridge into the deep water and just kills him. And I lose because of that. And moments like that these kind of campaigns create are what binds you to something and binds you to Warmachine. Like, I probably wouldn't be playing Warmachine without the background and the story and my experiences in that background and story, which is what this casual play packet, I think, is going to bring to us.
That's cool, man. That's very cool. And I love the fact that you guys have clearly fallen deeply in love with it and you've only played one. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've got plans.
There's a campaign coming.
Yeah. I was about to say it'd be awesome if you guys could play a campaign. I'd love to see what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that's going to happen as soon as the packet gets released. Yeah.
I can't wait to try to possibly do it on War Table. I was hoping to start a community up here. But the weather has disagreed with us when they told us how bad the winters were in upstate New York. And I was like, oh, it's fine. A couple inches of snow. No, 4 feet of snow makes it so nobody goes out.
No, yeah, but you get a lot of painting done.
Well, I actually, funny enough, I'm getting a lot of 3D printing done.
Oh, there you go.
And my plan is hopefully March to have all these minis and start doing painting days first and be like, here, come paint a mini and you get to keep it. And
Nice.
then fingers crossed, I can actually get the group started up here, because right now there's none. But
Well,
that's.
I like the idea of you playing via War Table, though. We should try that.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of the guys.
Makes sense.
A lot of the guys at our club, and certainly in the dev team, play War Table a lot. I'm quite lucky. I don't need to play War Table. I've always got plenty of people around that I can get a real world game. But yeah, War Table looks incredible. I mean, I used to play a load of games on Vassal. Vassal was always a bit more tricky and certainly not as user friendly as War Table is. But yeah. Yeah, no, I think I can't remember the casual scenarios built into War Table yet. I know we got the Steamroller ones put in quite early on.
There are some that are
built.
built in, yeah, and they're pretty easy to apply. Thank you very much for joining us and talking to us about this casual play packet and the aspects, the campaign, the Steamroller. So the last question we have is, the name of the packet is Tales from the Frontline. Where is that generated from? Where is that? I mean, I think we have a good feeling from what you guys have already sort of talked about where that can come from. But for you, where is that connect to this packet that you've created?
To me, I mean, for me personally, it's a name that's super evocative, right? It makes me feel about the zoomed in experience of the soldiers or the troops or whatever on the actual playing in these games. It's something which immediately makes me go to scenarios like Street by Street in my head, or kind of these border skirmishes or whatever else. It's something which immediately stands out as being both intensely narrative, but also something which is really zoomed in to the interactive experience of small skirmishes and that kind of thing. It's something that takes me to that place, and that's exactly what wanted that to feel like when people were looking at this pack right from the go. You open it, you look at it, and it doesn't feel as clinically detached as like, a sort of, I don't know, a generic sort of, more generic sounding name. It's something that needs to feel more personal, it needs to feel more lived in, and that for me is really where the genesis of that name came from. I also pass over to Matt if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, a little bit. I think what I've always found really interesting, and let me use role playing as a way of kind of demonstrate. I've always found it interesting how people can have a shared experience, but they can also have a uniquely personal experience. And certainly when I'm playing D&D with my mates, what I see in my head is the game that we're playing, but it's almost certainly different from what Sherwin sees in his head and what Ben sees in his head and the GM sees in his head. But we're able to have this sort of shared so the RPG is this wonderful API between our different imaginations. And I thought the name Tales from the Frontline is quite evocative. It reinforces these are the stories that are being told. It's stories that are coming back from the front line, and there's a certain part of me that actually quite likes this concept of history being written by the victors, and I quite like the idea of are these stories actually, have they already been played out, and these are just the stories that are now being told, but you guys are almost recreating them when you're playing those scenarios, or is it actually live and real time and you're kind of reporting on what's going on? I quite like that. There's a romantic part to that I quite enjoy. It has no real bearing on anything other than just more of a whimsical kind of indulgence. But yeah, I definitely felt the name had to be evocative of conflict. It had to be strongly referencing the fact that this is story driven and not war driven. It certainly, we wanted to kind of slightly de-escalate, because I think part of the problem that you see with a lot of the stories that have been told, recently is it's one-upping and one-upping and one-upping, and it's like, where the hell does this end? Like Warmachine, certainly when Sherwin and I talk about this, Warmachine always was was not 20,000 dudes fighting 20,000 dudes in a massive battle. It was always like border skirmishes or small forces or intense combats, and it always felt a lot more personal and a lot more character driven as a result of that. And I think there's Tales from the Front Line, it kind of just wanted to sound, it's not epics from the battlefront, it's these are just cool stories from the front line of a conflict that's happening around the world, of which there are numerous. So it's taken a little bit of heat out, but also reinforcing the fact that this is a story-driven aspect and not anything else.
Wow. All right. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Been good fun. We should do this more.
Yeah, it sure is.
Absolutely. I think we could have talked forever. And so, all right. So for those of you that have tuned in and are listening to the show, immediately following after this is going to be the wrap-up that Joe and I recorded after we played our street-to-street game. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you again for joining us, and I think that's going to be it for us tonight.
Sounds good. Are we going to see you at Adepticon? Because I would like to get another game with someone at some point in time.
Joe.
I'm coming. I'm bringing all the frogs. I have a really ambitious display board that I'm working on. I don't know if it's going to actually happen because it's quite heavy, but I'm doing my best to bring it out there.
Oh, so, dude, are you doing armies on? Are you going to do armies on parade? Are you?
I do, yeah. I've never done it before, but I think that's like a number one thing to do at Adepticon. So I'm excited to show off all my frogs and all my brand bloods. So.
Well, I don't know which army I'm bringing, but I might be bringing Kithgard, and I've got half an idea for a board, so I might maybe I'll do armies on parade with you, and we'll stick our frogs and trolls next to each other on the parade.
That'd be sick. I look forward to it.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been Jay.
And Alec.
And Joe.
And goodbye from Matt.
And Sherwin as well.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey guys, this is Jay.
And this is Joe.
We're here. We've just played our first campaign mission, Street to Street.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for Matt and Sherwin for joining us to sort of talk about the new casual play packet, talk about the excitement they have for it, and to sort of go over this mission a little bit so that you're not coming in completely blind. But there's still a bunch of stuff out there that we kind of have to cover as part of the setup of this thing, right?
Yeah, we wanted to we demoed a mission. We want to go into some of the specifics of how the campaign works. And honestly, it was kind of wild. It was way different than a normal game of Warmachine for us.
And I totally came into it thinking that it was going to be, table setup was different, but like my command cards would be the same. The same rules would apply to army building and army structure, and I really feel coming out of the game that it really doesn't. Yeah, we deployed and looked at the table, and we immediately thought this isn't going to go at all how we thought. Because the way the mission works is that let's not very lead. Let's talk about the setup and all right. So the way the mission works is I'm deployed in the center and he's surrounding me, and it surprised me. He was on me turn one. Yeah, it's a totally different dynamic. I had him surrounded from all sides. Right. I could charge him top of one if I wanted to. He totally could. Well, I had enough stuff blocking the way that your caster probably could have charged into the middle of my army on turn one. With the new Boggity Bomb, I've done more assassinations this year than that. All right, so how do we set up the mission? Okay, so the way that the missions work in the campaign is that there's a grid that each player has. Everybody has their own grid, and you can choose to attack a territory that's next to, orthogonally adjacent, which means not diagonal, to a territory you control. And depending on the territories you attack, you'll get a different mission. Right. So we flipped through the pack and we knew we wanted to play Street because it looked awesome. Right. So I chose an assault mission. So he chose an assault mission. So one of the important things to say is that you have to win 3 assault missions to win the campaign. Yeah, so these are the big battles that are the culmination of the campaign. They're very asymmetric. They're supposed to be harder for the attacker because they kind of gatekeep the ability to win. And to counteract that, I had to get to Street, I had to play a rally mission. Mm-hmm. Rally missions give you access, if you win, to morale which is a key thing that as it comes into this game,
which is super good.
Which we show that you can bring units back. It's a really important resource.
Yeah, and Jay's ability to bring stuff back was a big part of this.
It was. All right. So what else? So we decided on what type of mission we were. We got our resources.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do to continue on? Like where's the other starting stuff?
So the first thing we did. So you know, if you were playing with multiple people, you'd pair up and you'd both compare the mission that you chose in secret, and that'll determine what you play. We rigged it, because we wanted to play street by street.
Right.
The next part of this is spending your resources, and so the first thing you do is something called recon. So these are going to be advantages, tactical gambits, and strategic strikes, similar to the things that are in the casual play packet. And depending on how much intel you have and the models you bring, you can get some of these advantages for your army.
Everybody gets one roll at the start of the game. We get one die to add to your pool. We're each creating a dice pool. We each get one die.
Mm-hmm.
And then for each intel that you want to spend before the game, you get an extra die.
Yep.
And then on top of that, which is where Joe has the big advantage in this mission.
Yeah, if you have an ambusher, you get an extra point. And if you have an advanced deployer, you get an extra point.
Right. You had 2 advanced players.
So I came into this with 3 dice in my pool.
Yep.
I saved one of my intel. Jay spent an intel to get an extra dice in his pool. Yep. So Jay had 2 dice in his pool. Then what you do is you roll all the dice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get a 1, you don't get anything. If you get a 2 or a 3, you get a basic advantage, similar to the casual play packet. 4 or 5 give you a tactical gambit, which are pretty strong. And then 6 gives you the very special strategic strikes, which, at least for me, was really sick.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess I should tell you which ones I got, right?
Yep.
So my basic advantage was called...
so he rolled
I rolled a 2, and that gave me a basic advantage.
Right.
And then I rolled on the chart again, and I got a 1, which gave me a forced march, which lets me make a full advance with a unit immediately after deployment.
Which you used to do.
Which I used because Mazabaga got stuck in a really bad spot based on the deployment rules, so I used it to help her run back to her friends.
She got lost looking for the power source that was in the middle of the
table, right?
The table.
Yeah. I also got for my tactical gambit, so that's a roll of 4 or 5. I got a marked target, so I get to choose an enemy model unit. And friendly, arcane, and ranged attacks gain +2 to attack rolls against that unit until the end of my second turn. So I marked one of Jay's Winter Corps officers because they have his highest defense, and I thought I'm going to take those guys out early. And then the really fun one was the strategic strike. So you have to roll you have to roll a 6 on your recon die, and then I rolled another 6 on this table, and I got to choose a non-character unit or solo, and that model gained advanced deployment and Fortune Hunter. And so I gave Fortune Hunter to my Fugue Walker so that he could just absolutely go and hunt and murder characters. And at first I wanted to kill Jay's Warcaster.
And he got to deploy. The way the scenario mix works is all of the advanced deploying units get to deploy on my back table edge and behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a bunch of his army on one side, sort of dispersed around me on one side, and then a bunch of stuff in the back. And so he was in an optimal position to go to sort of beeline if he could.
Yeah. So Jay, you got an outflank on the tactical table.
Yep. So what outflank does is, and this is a pretty cool ability, and I really liked it. After your opponent is deployed, choose a friendly unit. The unit gains ambush and can be removed from the table. And so I put my shock trooper gunners in ambush.
Yeah, I thought this would be extremely powerful. The way the game played out, it was not.
Right,
but
because you ambushed, you come in 3 and you have to sacrifice movement or action with ambush now. I couldn't move in and shoot. I couldn't and because we were all sort of pushing to the center of the table for this, because the mission is
everybody fights in the center of the
middle of the table. So then, but then I also rolled a 6, so I got to roll on the strategic strike, and this is what really helped me. I rolled reinforcements. So once per game during your mains phase, you can choose a friendly faction non-character unit that's been destroyed. You just return to play and place anywhere completely within the deployment zone, and my deployment zone is the entire middle of the table. Models that were removed from play are not returned to play.
Yeah, and the key thing there is it doesn't say sacrifice movement or action.
Right.
They just get after it.
They just get after it.
Yeah, it was very good. It was very good. Yeah.
It was pretty great. So I think we set up. So now
we had a narrative for how this game was going to play.
Okay, so let's do the narrative first. So the way narrative works, when you create games like this and tell stories like this and run campaigns, you want to sort of create a feeling of what's happening.
And so, because we decided to play on the snowy table, and I have a Winter Corp army that has a snowy table, as you're seeing pictures of on the screen right now. Joe has this really cool fire frog army. We were able to put the two armies against each other and have a good.
Visually, they clash incredibly.
Right.
It's very clear, fire and ice kind of a thing.
So the plot is that Orgoth has been invading Khador, and Khador has been defending them. Mm-hmm. There's this Orgoth raiding party that is attacking a Khadoran settlement, and Ragemonger, leading his Bullcroak buddy Bagabam,
yep,
and his Bullcroak buddies, comes in behind this Orgoth raiding party and attacks them.
They're hunting them.
Mm-hmm. They drive them off. Ragemonger, in his craziness, screams out after them, leaving Bagabam and his guys sort of in the snowy woods, fighting, killing some Orgoth, and they look up and they're just gone.
So Bagabam, I feel like, in my headcanon, is normally the Bloodlust guy.
Right.
But the issue here is that Mazubaga has sensed the 96th Mazubaga has sensed a magical artifact nearby, and she is on a mission.
Right.
And so Bagabam follows after
her. To find it, right. And they stumble into this, now abandoned because of the Orgoth presence, Umbri village in the middle of the woods. And there's this raven statue with a magic altar,
a ritual table, candles
in the center of a group of warding stones in the middle of the village, and they have to inspect it. Well,
it's clearly a place of power. There's an ancient ley line. The village is established around this statue. That's the power that's driving the Bullcroaks.
My controller, who is a Manowar character model from the Annihilator Cadre, is the leader of a shock trooper policing detachment that has been sent to find this Orgoth raiding party and stop them from, and sort of drive them off, sort of like he did, because they didn't realize the Brian Bloods were doing this. And Severin, they've heard that there was a Warcaster or some jacks seen with this raiding party. And so Severin volunteers to take one jack from his resupplying army that's ready to go, join this policing force, and go look for this Orgoth party and try and drive them back into the sea and out of this area. And so Severin, with 2 warjacks, one from the policing force and one of his own, and the army that you're seeing on the screen now, are running into Joe's Bullcroaks, and the army you're seeing now, and his amazing blimp and all the frogs. And so they're set to fight over this table, this scene of this table, and
it's one of those like things with the fog of war, right? They're not they didn't intend to set out to kill each other, but the Bullcroaks are foreign looking. They're covered in flame. They show up in this village. The Khadorans are there. They're looking for the Orgoth. Right. They know it. They know they're expecting an attack, and these two forces just like run into each other. And the Khadorans hunker down in the middle of the village, and the Bullcroaks just enter that berserker fugue state and start and head into the center of the town. And it's just chaos and conflict.
Chaos from there. So you want to talk about your turn 1?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about my deployment. So this mission makes the defender deploy first in the center of the board.
Right.
And it also lets the defender set up a bunch of terrain to be as defensive as they'd like. Yeah. But it's really not that defensive. Right. And, so I start on his deployment zone and I can charge, from where I can deploy, I can charge basically any model in his army if I want
to.
So
the idea of the table, the really interesting thing about this mission, you basically have 2 deployment zones that are on top of each other. I have the 24-inch square in the middle of the 48-inch table. And then Joe has what would normally be his half of the table. He has everything else on his half of the table as his deployment zone, and then a 6-inch bubble on what would normally be my back edge as well to deploy on. Mm-hmm. And so there's only like 6 inches behind me and 12 inches on either side of my back half of the table that don't have a place where you can put a model. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just completely surrounded. And so what I decided to do is I decided to surround Severin, and with a force of a lot of my harder units, one of my heavy jacks, my bison, and sort of put them centrally so that he can't get to Severin turn 1, and I have
you're all turtled in the back of your deployment.
And then I have another little blob of pikemen, another heavy jack, and another officer up by the main power source in the center of the table, sort of defending it.
And so, like, Jay's all turtling in the back.
Right.
And so my idea is I'm going to deploy all around him. I'm going to try to stretch him out, make him expand his forces, and I'm going to come at him kind of hard from my ambusher side and hopefully push him into the center.
Right.
Into the middle of my whole farm, and then I can collapse on him.
So that
Yeah, so the Boggy Bomb can go in there and collect a skull, right?
Right.
But so I deployed pretty much all around him. I had the blimp on one side, I had Boggy Bomb and the beasts on the other side. I had the fire spitters behind him. My first turn, I have some of my fire spitters in the deployment zone charge into his pikemen. They kill the female Winter Corps officer, so that was my marked target. Yeah. They kill a couple pikemen. I also have
kill one pikeman.
They kill one pike. Yeah, one pikeman. Jay will tell you about that in a second. I kill one pikeman.
Do some damage to Alexia.
I do. I have one guy who rolls a 9 and stabs Alexia for a pretty big hit. I also get my shamans charge in and try to start tying him up. They don't really do any damage. They whiff all their rolls, but I get a little bit of damage on him. I'm starting to kind of engage him, try to get him to come out. I hide some of my fire spitters behind a forest because I don't want to spend all my gas right away. And I creep up my battle group and my Bullcroaks, and Mazabaga runs and rejoins the team thanks to her breakaway. So that was my turn 1, not 2 of them.
All right. So then my turn 1. So Severin, in his desperation and my desperation, and really not understanding the situation that I'm in, decides that he's going to activate first, pop his feet, ignore all concealment and cover for shooting when I'm surrounded in melee, kill order the 2 closest things, which really aren't the biggest threat, but use precision strike, giving him tactician so that my stuff can all move through each other and reposition to be in a better position.
Yeah, it was funny. Tactically, I felt like I got the thing I wanted, where I spooked Jay.
He spooked me hard.
Neither one of us was ready, and so I got that psychological advantage.
So the other problem that I had was that Severin, one of the spells that I've been wanting to use with him since the update is Airburst, which is an old Rusk spell, which is Severin's hero. So he got Airburst and Fire Effector, 2 of the spells that he got. And I should have Fire Effected the Bison and had the Bison go after your blimp, is what should have happened.
Yeah, that would have been a great choice. Yeah.
But what ended up happening is I ended up airbursting a unit of guys that I didn't really have any bother. I didn't have a chance to hit. And I then spent another focus to boost the damage roll.
And you rolled low.
And I rolled awful.
It was incredibly
all of it
bad.
And did nothing with four of his focus.
It really felt like Severin just wigging out, and he triggers an airburst and he runs to the center of the table and he has Forcador and he tells everybody, he orders everybody, and it's just
yeah. Oh, man. So I was able to, but he did run to the center to the statue in the center, the bird statue, and I was able to sort of rebox some stuff around him. Mm-hmm. I was able to clear out most of the one unit that had sort of come in. Alexia killed a guy. She raised the pikemen back alive with full health, which was pretty awesome.
I hated that. Yeah, I charged my frogs in. They whiffed. I killed one dude. He came back to life with full boxes.
Yeah, it was pretty great. It was pretty great. And then she hellfired somebody and flopped.
Narratively, is that like him transferring the frog soul into his body?
Yeah. She takes the life force and puts it back into the soul.
Yeah. I have not seen that in Mark IV, but it's pretty good. I'm excited to see that in competitive play, too.
It's pretty good. He then put a rock wall up, which was actually a good thing.
That
sort of stopped it cut off a path that the Brogger could have come around the corner and gotten a better position on my heavy jack.
Yeah, it forced me to spend a boost to pull with the tongue, spend a focus to jump, and the Brogger is not that scary when it's...
It didn't have any focus.
And then
it had to boost to give itself more power to actually hurt me.
Yeah. So that was
to use its animus, yeah. And then I went in, cleaned up some of the shaman.
Your pikes murdered the shamans right in front of Boggity Bomb's eyes.
He did. It was great.
It was horrible.
It was great.
I've never been more offended.
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
I got some of the other. I got all but one of the other shaman with the other unit of pike. I tried to spray that shaman with my the controller because I was still confused when he should have charged in and done a spray from close up.
You should have made a bomb and chucked it.
I did drop a spike spike trap in the middle of town, thinking that I was going to stop the advancing force of the other unit of ambushers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because they were just come around the corner taking a bunch of damage.
You did, and they did send me around the other side of the
way.
building.
Yeah, which was good with the controller. But I didn't really get much else accomplished with that turn.
I mean, you kind of cleared off all the things I threw at you.
Right.
And you ended up in the center of the table.
But I mean, it didn't really help me because like you go into your turn 2 and you immediately spend 2 morale and put that unit that I just murdered back on the same spot in the back table hedge and charge right back into me.
Yeah, the morale is quite powerful in this campaign, and the ability to bring a unit back and then activate it with it is really good, especially when my deployment zone was basically the entire table. They got right back into the fight.
Right.
Like, narratively, this is like,
exactly,
pieces of the warband who are like, who have fallen behind, they hear battle, they're late to the battle is joined, right? And they charged right in, and they dinged a dire wolf up a little bit.
Right.
So that was good, but it was I think they had more potential.
They did about half as damage.
Yeah, they did okay. Similarly on that front of the battlefield, I moved my balloon a little bit, juke, tweak my fugue walker forward, and then that guy walks forward, jumps, lands in the middle of a mechanic. Alexia, several pikes, the direwolf, and all of my own dudes.
And activates Berserk.
And it's just going to be incredible. Then he proceeds to whiff a roll on the mechanic, hits the mechanic, Berserks into Alexia, whiffs the roll. Then I spend a supply, and he trip ones again. It was so. The supply lets you reroll, which is helpful most of the time. I had Fortune Hunter, right? So this is 3 dice for me. I'm ready to kill Alexia. Yeah. I've got big plans for this dude, but he tried.
He tried.
So that was
got me back.
That was the back half of the field. Jay's kind of moves his mechanics around one of these buildings, and
the Arcanists.
His Arcanists, and between the Arcanists and the Spike Trap, I send my other unit of Fire Spitters on a merry mission to go fight the Arcanists. Yeah. Which is like what they did for the rest of the game. They really struggled.
Yeah, they both struggled into each other.
Yeah, those Arcanists, some brave conscripts for the Empire,
guess,
right?
Man.
Yeah,
I guess.
And then Boggity Bomb got some of his, so he charges into the pikes and the Mineral Corps officer that murdered the shamans in front of him, cleans him up, no problem, gets back to safety.
Eats the officer. Well, doesn't quite get the officer. Gets back to safety. The light beast goes in. Murders the officer.
Yep. And just stands next to him. And now I've got Boggity Bomb, like, pretty close to the center of the table, in a good defensive spot.
Clear line right to Severin.
Next turn. I'm trying to put the pressure on Jay.
Yeah. All right. So my turn 2. So I spend I both ambush in my shock trooper gunners, and they come in off the edge, and we're like, oh, they're going to do these great things, and then they don't really.
We realize they're kind of in the wrong spot.
Right, they're kind of like way far away, and I can only come in. Can't come in on one. I come in on any table edge except for Joe's table edge, and so Joe having 2 sides of the 4 sides of the table, I can only come in behind Mazabaga and not get to shoot at her because they're too far away, or come in behind where I want Severin to end up, which is currently behind the blimp at the moment.
Yeah, I think, like, for this mission, I mean, for all of these missions, some of these things are going to be hard to use, and I think if you can build a list when you're thinking about the list fight, you can build it with that piece in mind, and so maybe a really long-range shooting piece would have been a good thing.
So here's an interesting point about how different these kind of missions are. And so Breakthrough is a card that lets you disengage from a unit and go engage another unit.
Mm-hmm.
It's was one of the first cards, one of the first things we saw from Mark IV. And I probably used it for the 2 or 3 50-point or 30-point games I tried the rules of Mark IV when they first were showing it off. And I've never used it since.
And that's a little bit because of the lethality of the game, right? Like, things just, when they hit each other, they melted.
I'm playing Winter Corp, and a bunch of the Winter Corp stuff or Cavalry stuff has it already. And so it's in the game, and the stuff that I feel that needs it already has it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't tend to take the card, I take other things. This game, after we sort of realized how crazy it was, we sort of reset our cards a little bit, and I decided to take Breakthrough because, like, you were going to be on top of me, and I was going to need to be able to disengage, and it mattered for this turn.
Absolutely.
So in this turn, I was able to get some focus on my Direwolf, and then break away from the combat, get into your 80 mil.
Oh, yeah, my Bullcroak battle brig. Yes,
Right.
Yeah, you got into it.
And so I was able to redeploy out of the church the unit of pike that had just been killed by Bogdanov.
Yeah, I love how you played this narrative.
Right on the other side, and so I was like set up to do the charging thing, and then the Jack just killed the 80 mil.
Yeah, it's first world problems. Your Jack killed too many 80 mils.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I liked how you played, and you were good at this throughout the game, right?
Yeah.
Thinking of like, okay, what's the story behind this piece?
Right.
And like, yeah, these like pikemen, they like hear battle struck. They're like in the church. They takes them a couple turns to get all their gear on, right? And then they come out and they're ready to go.
Right. Yeah, I think that worked. I worked pretty well for this game, for this mission. So I was able to move the bison, sort of scoot around with the bison, kill the last shaman that was on Severin, and position to a point where Severin could just like actually put out good spells. I could put Fire Perfect on one Jack. I could Iron Flesh himself. Mm-hmm. I could get some focus out there, and then have him run away from Boggy Bomb as fast as he possibly could.
Which was absolutely the right choice because I was on you. Like I was there. Like
Right. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's do I've gotten, he's clear, I've gotten the way. Alexia, she's going to clean up this problem that's grown back here. And my controller's going to do a good action, and he's going to... So Alexia goes, she attacks his
Fugue Walker,
needing a 5 to hit him, flubs it.
I thought you killed it.
I took a point of damage to reroll it, killed him.
He's got last word, so he stands back up and whacks her with 3 dice. And this time he connects, and they both just lay there dead.
And they both lay there dead. And I was able to get a guy back from her killing him, but they're just both dead, and they're out. And that's what should have happened when he came into me, and it's hilarious that it happened to them.
Yeah. There was a lot of narrative enabling dice from a in the story. And it's like it's kind of fun when that stuff happens when you play narrative, right? Because it's just like rather than being like, oh man, this is like my tournament game, I'm gonna lose it or whatever. It's just like here's a cool aspect to the story, right? We would never have told the story of the like super badass Fugue Walker like whipping into Alexia, but instead we got to, and it was pretty legit.
So that's the funny thing about the Fugue Walker, because in my head, because of the way Richard used to play them,
you were terrorized.
Stack bombs. I was scared to hell. Like I'd been attacked by POW 20 Fugue Walkers before.
Yeah. The old Boom Howler special, right? Like Boomy knows how to make them crazy.
Right. Exactly. So I'm scared of him already, and I've been trying to get Joe to be excited on it. Now Joe is, which I love.
Yeah.
Okay, so I clear some more stuff up from the little back area.
Your Great Bear and your Pike kill my Vrogger, no problem.
The pikeman that Alexia brought back to life.
Oh God!
Kills your Vrogger.
Yeah, like decisively too. Right? He's like he's got 12 boxes, boss. Right. Let's crank this.
Right, exactly. And I rolled a 6. I rolled a 6, 5, 4. 20. No.
That was later.
That was later. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. I rolled high and killed him, which was great. So everything was set up. I sort of got the other unit that was supposed to kill the blimp that didn't get to kill the blimp back in front of Severin, so Severin had some protection. The shock trooper gunners were able to run up and sort of flank him, so he had his protective wall again.
Yeah.
And so then we went in, and Joe's like, well, angry eyes.
Yeah, so the issue is, my plan is to encircle Jay, but Jay has escaped from the pocket.
Like a couple of times now.
Yeah, he's brought a couple of models back, which, the attrition's starting to really look not good for me. I needed to do more work last turn if I was going to keep, pummeling him in. But we all know, I knew that I wasn't here to fight his army to the death anyway. I was going to go kill him. So, the issue is that Jay has run more than 18 inches away from Boggy Bomb, so I can't actually get to him with my Warcaster. But I come up with a plan.
Yeah.
I feed with Boggy Bomb. He charges the bison in the center of the table. Almost kills him on accident, using the 2 side steps and the fire step. He gets into the pikemen that are in front of Severin, and he kills all 3 of them.
Yeah. So it's important for you guys, if you don't understand how Boggy works, his feat makes him and his army incorporeal.
Ghostly now.
Ghostly. Charges.
They get 2 extra speed.
They get 2 extra speed, and then he has 2 side steps and a place effect.
Mm-hmm. Fire step.
Yeah.
And it means... it's interesting. I didn't assassinate him that much with him last year, but 16 to 18 is a big difference.
Huge.
And Ghostly is better than Incorporeal for the assassination run.
I agree.
So, but you're outside, so I'm not quite there. But I've got a plan. Anyone who knows the fluff knows that Boggity Bomb's favorite Virager is called Gugger Mug.
I love that.
It's a deep cut, but I know.
You keep bringing him up.
Hey man, you know what you know, right?
Yep.
I know Bull Croaks, and that's all I got. So
Yep.
I got to keep going after it. So the good news is I have cleared out all the models that are in front of him. So Gugger Mug walks forward, hops over a log, boosts, pulls him in.
You have your blimp there, so he's +2 to hit, and he's within 5, so he's effectively +2 to hit.
Yeah, my spotter blimp has just been hanging out in the middle of Jay's army, just like calling down fire.
I haven't been able to deal with it.
Yeah, Jay's just been too busy with putting out all the other fires, so he gets in on it. Now the odds of this aren't great,
right?
Because I get there and I'm in melee with Severin, but I only have 1 Fury, and I need 8s to hit. These are going to be dice -2s. So like a badass, I just straight roll 2 8s.
Yeah.
Punch him twice. I kind of flub one of the damage rolls, but I set him on fire and leave him on 6 boxes.
Yeah, and we also didn't. And then we're like, oh yeah, this wouldn't have worked anyways because it's an execution mode game.
Yeah, it wouldn't have actually worked because I have to kill him with my capture.
I mean,
but
if he had killed me with either the Frogger or the fire roll, I would have been stunned and dazed and out of control and wouldn't be able to use my caster for the next turn.
Yeah, and maybe I would have been able to finish it up. But, so don't forget the executioner.
Yeah.
Right? But which I've liked. I like that idea for these missions.
It's interesting. I didn't think it was going to be a big thing for the game, and I think it was. It is.
Yeah, no, it definitely mattered. Well, almost. So I've we have a little bit of other cleanup, little skirmishes elsewhere, but so I've got him on 6 boxes. I get 3 dice to my fire roll. I need a 12 to kill him, and so Jay goes, and it's Jay's turn. What happened, Jay?
I rolled a 1 on my fire test.
Like a boss. I mean, you deserved it after those 2 double 8s, so I'm not even mad, right?
I did. And so he didn't die, and I was able to just barely, by the skin of my teeth, charge in with the bison and knock Boggity Bomb down.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But
with that momentum,
and the momentum, and I rolled 46, and I rolled 6-6-6-5.
It's insane.
And he had 1 transfer.
Yeah, and it was 22 damage, which is exactly how much Boggity Bomb's loyal Reef Troll had, and so he transfers all 22 to it, and then stands next to Severin, knocks down, and like pretty much all she wrote, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's very good. But yeah, it was a very good game, very interesting, very dramatic, very fun,
very different.
Yeah.
This game is like, if you don't get it, this game you play until an execution, or until every model in one person's army is dead, basically.
At the end of a round.
The end of a round, and so I thought that might take a really long time.
Yeah, I mean that's
you
what
basically start in melee,
right?
Like it just goes like
I mean, when we were talking with Matt and Sherwin, we were pitching this idea with SFG for them letting us to do this, and we were like, well, we're thinking we want to play a 50-point game because the game is just going to like last forever because you got to kill everything in the model or execute or do the execution mode. We weren't thinking about everything just being engaged on turn 1.
Yeah, it's like starting a Warmachine game on turn 3.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Right.
I'd highly recommend bringing a bunch of advanced players if you're the attacker so you can just totally surround them.
It was crazy.
Did you like setting up the table? That was like your advantage as the defender. Was you get to put all the terrain down.
I think it was fun. I think it was cool. I think that the terrain that we had, I mean, I love the terrain that we have. It looks great, but it wasn't the most advantageous for me for the purpose of this game. There was lots of big holes that you were able to charge through.
Yeah, I think you gotta, as the defender, you maybe want to be like real cutthroat and like you could have
stack a wall together effectively.
Yeah, make that defensive line real gnarly because you're getting charged first turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Only give them 1 or 2 sides of attack instead of effectively 4 like I gave you.
Yeah.
I think that the important thing to take away from this is that this casual play packet is offering a really different feel. I mean, for me personally, and I've played in a lot of Warmachine campaigns over the years, the thing that actually really got me into Warmachine was the escalation campaign that me and my 3 friends played when we first started, right after we got into the game in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And that campaign had little fun side quests like this and big narrative battles that you come together and play at the beginning of every season. You play 4 through 4 seasons. And the narrative fun and the cool imagery and the interactions that we had in that is what got me excited about Warmachine and got me into playing and wanting to be competitive and painting and things like that. And so I feel like this is a really good return to that feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it'll be fun for everyone to play just because it's legitimately different than Steamroller.
Right.
And I think it's been a long time since I've felt like that there's been something out there that does that. Makes me want to build my lists different, makes you think about using your cards differently. Like, it's hard for me I'm still wrapping my head around it, right? But you can imagine you wanted to play different models for this mission.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I probably should have played more guns, so I could pepper you more and make you come out. And you probably wanted to play more melee, so you could be in the middle of the melee.
I wanted to have my Annihilator cult have Sakura.
Yeah,
have some heft and some weight and some health
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that'll be. You're going to be thinking about that kind of thing when you play these games. So.
Right, and I think every mission, just from approaching this one mission, I don't think that every mission is going to play the same. I think every mission is going to play different. And there are 8 missions in the campaign pack, and 6 missions in the normal casual play and German League pack. So I mean that's a lot.
It's a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
I could definitely imagine also layering a little bit more narrative stuff over it. And I think there's a lot of space to do that in here.
Right. A narrative story to the campaign. And I really like that this campaign, that even though there's all this depth and creativity and different ways to look at your armies and build your armies, they left a lot of that out. Because it allows the group of people to apply that.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for us, right?
Right. For us to create and add to the story.
Totally.
Right. Well, thank you very much to SFG, to Matt Sherwin coming on, and for SFG to get an opportunity to introduce the casual play packet to you.
Tales from the Front Line. That's what it's called.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Jay.
And Joe.
We'll talk to you again soon.